In this video, don't be disappointed. The main thing I'm going to do is to fit my side stand, and mainly because I've just literally bought a nice tool to pull the spring on. Now that's the main thing I'm going to do, but like all projects, this is my T140V rester mod project. It's turned it into a period looking desert sled with modern accoutrements. That's the intention. I really actually want to play with the engine, and these things are getting in the way at the moment. But I've been doing some work with the rear master cylinder, as you'll have seen in the last video, and I've got discs on, and I've come across a problem with the kind of calipers that I was intending to use. So I'll share them in this video as well. So my main thing is I'm going to get the side stand on, so at least if I'm moving the roller chassis about I don't have to lean it against the wall. But I'll talk about a few of the other bits and pieces and show you what my thought processes are with regard to the brakes. I have given this a good rust proofing and painted it, so it's in reasonable fettle. And no matter what you do, powder coat it or whatever, when you keep putting it down on the floor, this bit will scratch and will go rusty again. So I've also cleaned the bolt that holds it in. It's a shouldered bolt, and I've covered these with rust proofing wax, that wax oil stuff. You can look in the description, I'll put a link to it. I think it's quite a good thing. Keep topping it up and it will stop your stuff rusting. And importantly, I've got my new hooky thing. Let's see how this works. I've hurt my hands in the past putting these things on, and I saw this at a show and I thought, let's give it a go. I've wanted one for a while, and sometimes they look a bit flimsy. This actually looks quite strong. The side stand is quite simple. It is literally just one bolt through. What I'm going to do is I'll put some grease in the hole on the stand itself, and let's go mad a little bit on the bolt. So I'm giving it its best shot. It can only go on literally one way. You want the spring thing at the bottom. So having made sure that the holes do actually let the bolt go through. Plenty of play there, isn't there? There always seems to be. And I'm going to use a lock nut and a washer on the bottom side. The spring has got to get from there to there. And you tend to find that if it's folded up, it's slightly a lesser distance for it to go. Let's see how good my tool works on this. So, hooked on there. I'll go that way with this. Let me see. Is a bloody... Oops. Looks like the tool won't let it go on. No. Well, that was a bit of a disaster, wasn't it? Well, let's try it the other way. Not quite as hopeful about this one. It seems to go on there fairly easily. Let's give it a go. So it's on there. Typically can't get my arms anywhere useful. No, it looks like this is just too thick to let it to go on, which is a bloody nuisance. I think I'm going to have to resort to the way I've done this before. So, as hopeful as I was of my nice little tool. So how was that? So it looks like the tool didn't quite make it. So what I'm going to resort to is the way that I have done this before, and it's not something I do every week, so you'll understand why I didn't immediately think to do it this way. Get my hands nicely covered with grease. And the way I've done this before, and I'm going to try and do it now, is to put the spring onto the little nubbin. Oh, yeah, I think we're winning now. So, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you could even see it. And what we need to do is pull it enough for the bolt to find the hole. Get into this spot. See, these Triumphs, they're made in such an interesting way. I can see that when I've got a nut and bolt on here, this is really going to catch on the spring, which is probably why this has got such a thin head. So it looks like I'm going to have to put this in from underneath. Forgot all this, don't think it mentions it in the workshop manual, and even with it in this way, it still scrapes across, but I'm sure we can live with that. Now I would much rather that this was in the other way, purely because if the nut falls off, then this can't possibly fall out. But as you can see from the interference on the spring, and I do vaguely remember that from last time, you don't really have a choice. So we'll put them on, do the usual FT tightening, and then give it a quick test. That's the side stand on. Now there is an adjustment here, but because I've got bits in the way, I'm not going to worry about it, and it's whatever it was adjusted to before anyway, because I haven't changed it. Might need to just pull it in a little bit afterwards, so I'm happy with that. Let's have a look at these brakes and have a quick chat about that as well. Now this is the original rear caliper that was on the bike, and I'm sure that I could battle these pistons out and recondition this, but I'll be honest, I really didn't want to take that on at this stage. So what I decided to do was buy some of the absolutely lovely Girling calipers to go with the Girling disc brakes I've put on. However, for the rear brake, they always fall out. For the rear brake, it turns out that these cooling bits here interfere with where the brake steady is. Now, I suspect I could actually grind these off. But what I think I've decided to do for the rear brake is not to use this caliper. I've got two, I'm going to use one on the front, to actually put that caliper to one side for the moment. And instead of fighting my way through that one, I'm actually thinking I'll recondition the front one, which looks a lot better, and use that at the rear. And part of my thoughts are, I don't want to destroy one of these, really don't. I'm going to say destroy, I mean just damage it, and just to fit it, with part of it cut off. I could never sell it again, and I don't think I'd feel happy about it. I may eventually do that, but for now I don't think I need to. I think I'll be able to recondition this one. What I am thinking of doing though is fitting the second one of these I bought at the front and have twin disc setup. Now that again leads on to another problem. to get the right hand fork leg that these can fit to can be a bit of an issue. The left hand fork leg on the standard T140V has got this casting on for mounting the caliper. The right hand that has this kind of casting was used on a T150 and some on the later very specialist Bonnevilles that they were making. Therefore it's relatively rare. You can find the standard fork legs quite easily and quite cheaply, but finding a right hand one that's for a caliper is a little bit harder. They do still make them and they're reasonably expensive, and you end up having to buy all the different parts such as the studs and everything. But I've got the caliper, I've got another one of these discs at the back at the moment, so we'll have a look at that. I just roughly put on the engine plate and the footrest and the footrest rubber. I will tighten them up again in the future. My plan then is use one of these on the front, recondition that for the back at the moment, leave the two Girling discs on. We'll shop for a right hand fork leg. If I can get one, then I'll use this caliper on the right hand side. If it turns out I can't get a right hand fork leg, then I may modify this and use it on the rear, but I think I'd be loath to do that because they're not cheap. I will put a link in the description. So that's my thoughts at the moment. Does it need twin discs at the front? They'd look nice, wouldn't they? But it's going to be a bit more work and it'd be a bit more cost as well. So that's where I'm at the moment. My tool was great, it didn't work. I had to use the way I've worked out in the past. It took me a while to remember that, but I am getting on, so I'm sure you'll forgive me for that. Next with this, what am I doing? Well, I actually think I'm going to start stripping the other side of the engine because I want to play with the engine more, and I'll keep coming back to doing bits of this while I'm shopping for a right hand fork leg and while I'm reconditioning this caliper. So subscribe, follow along, and give us a like if you can. I'd be really pleased with that.